For this activity, students will explore the materials for the experiments that will come afterward. Let them handle the materials such as wax, candle wick, food coloring, etc. to check their texture, color, odor, and state. Before you pass out the materials, warn students that peroxide can be harmful if touched or exposed for a long time to its smell. Check the link in the resource section of this online curriculum for more information on how to smell chemical substances properly. Now that students explored the materials they are going to use, let's get started with the experiments. The first experiment is to help students differentiate between physical and chemical changes. You can perform these experiments in front of the full class or allow the students to perform the experiments in teams and ask them if a chemical or physical change has happened and why. For example, when the wax is melting, we can observe a change of state from solid to liquid. It's a physical change. However, when the candle wick is burning, it's considered a chemical change. For this experiment, you will need around half cup of water, a candle, food coloring, and a lighter. We are burning the candle wick for this first part to watch the physical change as the wick melts. Let the students observe the candle for a while for them to see the physical reaction happening. Supervise the students throughout the process, teaching them that fire is hazardous and that they should carefully handle the candle, especially when the candle wick starts to melt. For the second part, you will need liquid food coloring and a cup of water. A chemical reaction happens when you add the food coloring to the water. You can take the opportunity to explain the chemical change that just happened and discuss the role of catalysts in a chemical reaction. With these two experiments, you can take the opportunity to explain the difference between physical and chemical changes. The next experiments are to observe the speed of chemical reactions. Students will write down their observations in worksheet 3B Activity 2, Physical and Chemical Changes. These are the materials you need to perform the next experiment. 5 ml of liquid soap, approximately 20 grams of chopped potatoes, and you will also need either hydrogen peroxide 12% or 40 volume. However, it's safer for the students to use 3% instead of 12% since it's less aggressive. Mix in the following order the liquid soap, the chopped potato, and hydrogen peroxide. If the reaction takes too much time to start, you can mix or shake the mixture a little to speed it up. For the next experiment, you will also use 5 ml of liquid soap, less than 1 tablespoon of potassium iodide, and hydrogen peroxide 12%, 30 ml. Mix in order potassium iodide, liquid soap, and hydrogen peroxide. The following experiments show students how chemical energy can be transformed into thermal energy by measuring the temperature in a chemical reaction. Thus, the experiments using peroxide and potassium iodide and the vinegar and baking soda show how the temperature changes when a chemical reaction is happening. Mix 30 ml of vinegar with 1 tablespoon of baking soda and ask students to measure the initial temperature. Wait for around 3 minutes, and when there is no reaction happening, ask students to measure the final temperature. Mix less than 1 tablespoon of potassium iodide and 3% of hydrogen peroxide, and ask students to measure the initial temperature. Wait for around 3 minutes, and when there is no reaction happening, ask students to measure the final temperature. They should register the initial and final temperature on the table for worksheet 3B, activity 3, thermal energy.